The reminders which can help when you playfully bring it into application is very supportive, very valuable, because we have as human beings the tendency to forget, and many things which we know, often we are not applying it because without a deliberate and ongoing initiative, the inner automatism pushes it aside. That is the sense behind these reminders, that when you take deliberately time to look, to consider, it will help you to go behind some of the unconsciously created barriers and get more clear, get more free. That is why it is reminded that put it into practice and take it to heart and make it work, that it can become a opening for you, a deeper way of connecting to the reality for you. Okay, the first reminder is, in English there is a saying, the first impression is the best impression. That means that what automatically arises in us as a reaction is having a very strong impact in our perception of the reality. But as you bring your awareness, you can see that the automatic judgment, reaction, labeling is not based on the deeper understanding of the reality. It is more just a projection based on your conditioning. So, deliberately look, what is the second impression when you are looking at the same situation in a wakeful way. For example, in all the situations where there is some kind of reaction provoked in you, especially when it's a negative reaction, it is more valuable to see. But in general, if you look what is all working in you, that will be very valuable and supportive. So for example, when there's some irritation coming up, some pride, some anger, some bitterness, sadness, disappointment, frustration, look, that is the first reaction which is arising. Now, take the initiative to look very deliberately, consciously, and look at it in a wakeful way, so that you can wakefully observe that what comes into your visibility when you are not projecting through the past. And that is where you can bring in this aspect, that when I am not wanting something from the other, when I am not holding to any expectation, any wish, any longing, or when I am not holding to anything from my side, how does it look to me? You will be very surprised that when you look without projecting through the past, suddenly your perception of the whole situation changes. But it can only happen very deliberately, consciously, because the automatism always brings it up in such a way as if this is the reality. So become very careful that you are alert about this trap that some things look so obvious, and then you think that this is how it is. But when you deliberately put your expectation, your wish, your fear, your pride, your prejudice aside, and look what way does it seem to you then. You see, to bring the understanding a little bit more carefully, when a child comes to the world, it is so open, so full of wonder, curious, playful, and in a sense of joy. So there is a certain quality of perception which you have experienced, but not so consciously, because that was happening by itself in an unconscious level. Now when you remember to confront and look at that what is, without bringing any of this conditioning, any of the past, what does it show to you? What is the way it is looking now when you are just looking? Not wanting anything, not wanting to have something through it or change anything, but simply looking. So that is the second look I am talking about. Conscious, deliberate, wakeful perception without identifying and following the automatic negative process. And remember, when I'm saying not following the negative process, it's not only that you're not following it and going with it, but also not fighting against it. You are just looking all that what is coming. And it is very valuable if you can realize that you give energy to certain patterns not only when you are following them, but also when you are fighting against it, because in both the cases your attention is on these patterns of reaction. So let it become so more visible to yourself that there's a different way of looking where you are not trying to interfere, trying to change, trying to get, but just looking. So you can say it is learning to see directly. So this is the first thing. Experiment with it, and at least on 7 occasions during a day when there are interactions, even if it is just only a thought about somebody that you're having, look what is coming. Or you're telephoning with somebody, look what is getting touched. And parallel to that, bring in the second look. Of course, when you meet someone else and this is coming, or when there's an interaction with somebody, when things are coming up, that is very important if you can really bring also the attention in these things. But even if for whatever reason, because of the lockdown, you are not coming out and meeting so many people, look at all this, what is happening. And remember, it's not trying to analyze and figure out anything. It is simply that you are not following the automatic reaction and beginning to look directly, wakefully, without projection. So let it become your experiential understanding. This is the direction to experiment with. This is the direction to work with. And the second reminder is, as I mentioned already in the first reminder, every child comes with a certain state of openness, aliveness, freshness, vulnerability, playfulness, a sense of wonder, is joyous. This is where you have started. That is when you have not been caught in the role which you are playing now. You didn't have a name, you didn't have a kind of identity which you have picked up during all these years. You were simply part of the wild, wondrous process of life. In the deeper teachings, there is a saying, always remember the beginning and the end. And this has various factors connected with it, but one of them is when you can remember that you have started with such a joyous, harmonious, light, clear, playful state. So, you also know that a time will come where you have to leave this body, where death will come, and everything will change. Nothing you can hold. If you are able to connect to this original state from where you have been beginning in this life process, get familiar with it, then when things are changing, when the body is going to the basic elements, the personality you cannot hold to and it is dissolving. If there is a remembrance in you, if you have become familiar with that state, which is your essential state, when you have not been caught in the personality, then you can get more easily be rooted in this essential state where you began. And the beautiful thing is, when you can connect to it consciously, you don't get trapped in all these efforts to struggle, to fight, to cling, and all that anguish and anxiety and suffering. Because without that, when things are changing and you are not prepared inside, it looks like the biggest danger. Everything is changing, everything is disappearing. So the biggest panic reaction comes up. So you have to look, have you brought yourself inwardly to that state of inner clarity where you can watch everything without getting trapped in the struggles, clinging, and without falling into the suffering. So experiment with this. Also during the day, just take spontaneously, whenever you are starting with something new, starting to go for a walk, starting to have a meal, starting to begin with some activity, take some moments to observe this process, to bring the attention to the beginning and the end. This conscious bringing of attention to the essential state will be very, very valuable. So this also experiment about 7 times a day. So both these reminders together, put in practice, can be very deeply supportive.